Hi, everybody. A very warm welcome to all the viewers of Immigration Buzz by Adnan and Shariq. So today it's slightly different. As you see, well, you would not be seeing Adnan on the screen. As we speak, Adnan is actually traveling to Saudi Arabia, so he's in transit. So that's why he's missing the show today. Um, he will be back in our next episode. And we thought that because this is a regular weekly thing, so we must not cancel today's show. We must go on. So, again, a very warm welcome to all of you from Hassan Shariq as well as Adnan Khalid, who is right now not on screen, but who is taking his flight to Saudi Arabia. He will be in Saudi Arabia for a while, for a little more than a month and a half. So anybody who's watching this show and who are based in maybe Saudi Arabia and would want to connect with Adnan, this will be a great opportunity. Um, so now, doing the show as regularly done every week, what we will do is that first of all, I will talk about today's topic, and today's topic is an important one, which is the work experience letters or work reference letters that are required for express entry in specific, but whichever stream of skilled migration when you apply for, you will be required to provide similar work experience letters. So I will go through the details of those. And sorry, I have a bit of a sore throat, so my voice might sound a little different. And then at the end, if there are questions or comments, I will, on behalf of Atan, I will take them all for all of you. To begin, what I will do is that I will share a screen with all of you. I hope this is clear. So this is official Government of Canada official web page. Probably in one of my live streams in the past, I have shown this as well, where it gives you the details of the proof of work experience documents. Now, for all of you who are interested or who are going through the process of Canadian skill migration, you would know that you're supposed to nominate a NOC code, which is the National Occupation Classification. So you clearly mention as to what profession you are from. And then, as part of your application, you provide details on that particular NOC code as to how much years of work experience you have. Um, Now, to gain points, once you get an ITA, and this is not required at the stage of submitting your profile or your express entry profile, but once you get your ITA, that is when you are required to provide documents which prove that you've done work in that particular NOC. Now, just a title for a job does not make you eligible for a NOC, and also there are certain other ingredients. So the important things that your work experience letter must cover. I'll first read it from the official communication by the Government of Canada website, and then we'll talk a little in detail. Um, so proof of work experience letters, what is usually called an employment reference letter, the purpose to prove each work experience claim and to validate that the applicant meets program requirements. So there are two important objectives that are met through the work experience letters. Number one, prove that each work experience claim that you had, that you worked, say, in NOC 01 to 4, and you say that you worked in this NOC for 4 years, 3 years or 4 years, you are required to prove that through these experience letters. So first, the points that you're claiming, that will be ascertained through this. Also, keep in mind that if you're looking at express entry or programs related to express entry, then there is a minimum eligibility requirement. for each of the programs. You must have 12 months of work experience in most cases. In some cases, it has to be at least one stream of 12 months continuous work experience. And in some other cases, like CEC, it can be a mix of different work experiences joined together as 12 months. So with the experience letters, your basic eligibility will also be ascertained. Like, do you have that 12 months continuous work experience or not? Because you might have 5 years of work experience in total, but if that is not really, if there isn't a period of 12 months continuous, that means that you do not meet the basic eligibility. So that's the requirement, that's the need for work experience letters. Um, in terms of the documents that you're supposed to provide, if there can be different cases, like you can be somebody who's worked in different jobs, which is mostly the case, and then there can be a possibility that you were self-employed, like maybe a lot of people who are working as web developers or software developers in IT. Sometimes even people who are in accounting and such professions, they can be self-employed as well. So the actual documentation that you provide will depend on what your circumstances were. So first of all, say for instance, and I'll try and zoom in a bit so that you guys can see this a little more clearly. So if, for instance, you were a salaried employee, in that case, what is required is a reference or experience letter from the employer. This should, in a lot of cases, the employment letter that you have or experience letter that you have are very basic standard ones where people where only your duration of work and your job title is written, and then it's like a statement usually saying that good luck for all your future endeavors. Now, that's not what is required over here. Your reference letter should, I'll read the official statement, should be an official document printed on company letterhead, I'll actually highlight it. Should be an official document printed on company letterhead, must include the applicant's name, the company's contact information, and the name, title, and signature of the immediate supervisor or personal officer. Okay. Second part, should indicate all positions held while employed at the company. So, you might have joined a company as a software developer, and then you became a project manager. Now, these are two different knocks. Or you might have joined as an accountant, and then you became as accounting manager. So it must mention all the different designations that you've held. Your job title, what was the job title? And also the detailed duties and responsibilities. Now, keep in mind that every knock code that is there, has a list of detailed duties that must be performed for you to be considered in that knock code. So say, I'll give you an example. Say, for instance, you are maybe an engineer. By education, you are a mechanical engineer. You will only be considered a mechanical engineer if your experience letters list down the duties that are listed under mechanical engineer. If, say, for instance, you're doing a project management job, or you're actually doing a marketing and sales job, but your education is mechanical engineering, your knock code will not be a mechanical engineer, but a marketing and sales manager, or like a project manager. So detailed duties and responsibilities must be mentioned. And keep in mind that each knock has what we call as a lead statement, and then there are duties and responsibilities which are listed underneath. So your experience letter must overlap with how the lead statement is mentioned for the knock and how we have the detailed duties mentioned in it. Also, it must mention your salary. To be eligible to be considered as work experience. For the purpose of skill migration, your job role has to be a paid role. It cannot be a volunteer work or an internship or traineeship. So it doesn't matter as to what your salary structure was, if it was paid at a high scale or at a low scale. That absolutely doesn't matter. What matters is that it must mention that you were paid and what was your pay structure. Um, and in case if you were self-employed, like you were a software developer or something, somebody like that who was doing this kind of work on his own, in that case, you have to provide certain other evidence, which will be articles of incorporation, wherever you formed your company, evidence of self-employment income and documentation from third party, like anybody that to whom you provided your services. You have to provide details as to what services were there. So if there were invoices, if there were contracts, and all that, that has to be provided. Now, one thing that I'd like to mention over here, and I'll actually stop this screen share. So a lot of times there are instances, and we get to have clients regularly. I was actually working on an application for Ontario's Human Capital Priority Schemes the previous week, wherein the applicants are not able to provide one specific experience letter which fulfills all these requirements. Now, if that is not the case, then you have to look for alternatives for it. You have to make sure that you provide as much information which is required over here, your job details, your duties, your salary. Very important, probably I've not touched on that. You have to prove that your job was full time, or whatever the work hours were. Because when we say that for express entry federal skilled worker applicants, 12 months of continuous full-time equivalent work experience is required. What you are required to do is that you have to provide details as to what was the per week working hours at the job that you were doing. If it was at least 30, then it will be considered as full time, and that will be 12 months. If, say, for instance, you have less than 30 hours per week on that job, then it will have to be prorated, and in that case, probably 12 months of work experience might not be equal to the full time requirement that is there. So your number of work hours have to be mentioned. So if you're not able to provide this as part of one documentation, then you have to look for solutions, alternatives for it. So you need to maybe provide documentation through salary slips, bank statements to prove that you were being paid like this. In some instances, I've had applicants where we've had to, like, a company got dissolved or there were merger and acquisitions of the company. In that case, you might be required to, get some affidavits from your other colleagues, or from office bearers in that company. So there are solutions to it. Do keep in mind that all those documentation that we provide then as a solution, that is case officer's discretion if they accept it or not. If they can, because they have to make sure that your experience is proved through your work experience letters. If you can get this kind of document which has all these details, then it is super smooth, super easy sailing. And that's what we recommend. If you're not able to get that, definitely there are alternative and solutions that we can look at. So with that, also keep in mind that this is pretty much the standard requirement for work experience letters, no matter which skilled migration stream you apply, the federal or the provincial. But there can be slight differences, as I was mentioning about the PNP application. So they do require some other documentation as well. Saskatchewan requires pay state stubs as a mandatory document, sometimes taxation documents. The province of Ontario also requires one supporting document, like maybe a pay stub, which can be a system generated one, but they do require that. So there can be slight differences, but the basic work reference letter remains the same. With that, what I'll do is that I'll take up questions and comments. I see there's a few, and then we can probably wrap it up. We've again changed the time. It's a Saturday morning for us here in Toronto. So I'll try and wrap it up and then try and rest a bit. So first up, we have Hashim plays Z. That seems like a name of somebody who's a gamer who's into gaming. So Hashim, the question that Hashim has put is, do the educational requirements also need to be addressed along with the job responsibilities on the same experience letter? The answer is yes and no. And also keep in mind that moving forward, mid next year, we're having the new NOC code, which will have different implications. So right now, if a job is such that it is not a licensed profession, and you're not applying for a PNP, which requires a licensing for that. In that case, even if you have a slightly different education, I gave an example that maybe you've graduated with a degree in engineering, but you've been working as a marketing and sales person, that is acceptable. But normally, the level of education that is required, you have to prove that kind of level of education. And there are certain professions like if somebody's saying that they are a nursing professional, they cannot become a nursing professional without having some kind of education in the field. So that's important. So yes and no. In most of the professions, even if you don't have the exact educational requirements, it can still work out. Next up, it's Faisal. Faisal is asking, sir, what about if anyone doing job and do not work for full year and left job and after 3 months again start a new job, then what will be the eligibility? If they don't have a 12 months continuous work experience, at least for one job, for their main NOC, then they don't meet the eligibility. So that's how it is. Next up, Hashim has another question. Also, please let me know if we need to get different experience letters from same company if I've worked on different positions. No, if you've been working in the same organization, it's different designation, then one experience letter mentioning all of these is perfectly fine. Again, another question. Is Sir Adnan is going to be back? Missed his presence. You both are providing music contribution. Yeah. Adnan is going to be back. I mentioned he will be in Saudi Arabia. His family is in Saudi Arabia, so he's gone there visiting them. And I know Adnan is an amazing professional, and the way he creates those presentations are brilliant. I can't just do that. So he will be back. Hopefully, the next session that we do, Adnan will again be part of it while he's in Saudi. So it's just that right now he took his flight, and because he's based in Calgary, so there wasn't a direct flight. So there's a lot of connections that he's getting. Probably by this time he would either be in somewhere in Europe or probably entering the Arabian Peninsula. So he will be back. Don't worry. And thank you for appreciating the fact that we're trying to help and provide this information to the community. Thank you. Faisal, do I see verify the experience letter submitted in PR applications? Why else are they asking for these documentations? Faisal, I really didn't get the gist of this question. They do verify. It takes being based here, we can request GCMS notes. Like if an application has taken long, we take GCMS notes. We request GCMS notes, and right now, because a lot of our applications have been in the processing queue for more than 6 months, so probably I've had GCMS notes request for all of my applications. reduce the PR applications. And very clearly, there are comments mentioned on that, that a verification has been done. What kind of verification has been done? So I know that employers have been called um, in some instances from the Islamabad High Commission, in some instances even from here from Canada. I know employers have been sent emails, and in some instances there have been in-person verifications as well. Not to say that all these kinds of verification efforts will be done for each and every application. No, some applications might not have any of these, but you never know. Your submission might actually get an in-person verification. So yes, these are verified, and that's the whole purpose. Also, depending on country from where the documentation is being submitted, there are different levels of scrutiny for each country. And also the kind of work experience that you're submitting. So, say for instance, you're submitting a work experience for a company which is a multinational, and there is a standard form of documentation. So they can very easily see that, okay, so this is a big company. The experience letter is as per the template, because you're not the only one applying from that company. They would have already had it. Um, there's online presence. Such a person would have a brilliant LinkedIn profile. So all good. But then if you're submitting an experience letter, which is on a letterhead of a company which is an absolutely unknown, they don't have a web presence even, then it becomes a little like that's where the flags are raised, and that's where the case officer is going to have a look at other means of verifying that as well, and they do verify. Even if it's, as I mentioned, it's not a direct verification. I know where applicants, even their LinkedIn profiles were compared, and things were seen from that end. So yes. Faisal, I've already answered that work experience must. So yes and no. It depends on the profession, but in some instances, definitely you can be working in other roles with a different education and qualification. A very good example is a lot of engineers are working as project managers. Our very good friend Adnan. Adnan is an engineer. By education, and then he's worked in various roles in the past, and then he also holds the project management certification. So he works as a, like he's been, for long he's worked as a project manager. So project manager is a different knock. Maybe civil engineer is a different knock. So you can it depends on what kind of profession we're talking of. uh, Faisal, it seems that you're repeating the same question, that must be, so work experience or profession must be related with the education and by someone, or otherwise the applicant might be disqualified. I've already mentioned that yes and no. There is a possibility of disqualification. Keep in mind, if there are these variances, I know, Faisal, you probably work with clients in Pakistan. You provide your services. Now, if you as a service provider are not feeling comfortable that certain education is not really something that can lead to a certain profession, you're not comfortable, then consider the visa officer, case officer, whose job is to be critical. So if there are these variations, definitely they'll raise the level of scrutiny, and they'll see if actually that person um, has carried out those duties or not. So I won't say that this is a right away disqualification, because see, all these things, Canadian immigration, this is based on law. Um, uh, so when we are doing our submissions, or when there's a rejection, and we There are a lot of case laws where the Federal Court of Canada has overturned decisions by case officers. But even case officers, when they reject, they don't reject it that I don't feel it like that. There's a whole legal process that they follow through. So you have to look at a lot of these things. It's not just that because the degree was different, so the officer would send a disqualification letter. No, the officer will do the scrutiny at a certain level, and usually it's not one officer working on a case. There are different levels of reviewers. So it's based on quite a lot of factors. But if it is a completely different one, as I mentioned, that somebody who's saying that they're a healthcare professional, they're a nursing profession, but they don't even have a qualification for that, I don't think so that that's possible. Perfect. So I think that's all. We don't have any more questions or comments. And it's already about 25 minutes that I've been yapping and yapping. So with that, I'll leave it over here. And as usual, we'll leave it with small video, small promotional video. If you have further questions and comments, do post them. Your feedback is always greatly appreciated. Do let us know. We've been trying to change the timing, so do let us know what sort of time works well for you. So take care of yourself and your families, and and hopefully next week I'll see you again, probably the same time or at a different time. Bye bye.